I'd like to show you why knowing your why is the start of your journey. Without a strong why, it can be so difficult to reach your maximum potential. My name is Dr. Jason Balara, and every week I meet with real estate investors and mindset specialists that are taking action in order to build a life according to their own terms. We will break down what drives successful people and allows them to achieve at such a high level. If you are a professional wanting to break through, or simply someone that wants to hear an inspiring story, the Know Your Why podcast is made for you. Hi, everyone. I'm Jason Balara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast. Today, I'm here with Kevin Brenner. Kevin is a University of Miami graduate with a bachelor's in atmospheric science and a former top Pentagon Air Force meteorologist. Kevin's not your typical Wall Street fund manager. Rather than pursuing an expensive finance degree, he spent years meticulously educating himself in every facet of multifamily real estate, from syndications to underwriting to fund management. So, Kevin, your bio is incredibly impressive, and I'm really excited to talk about all of it. But first of all, I just wanted to say thank you so much for coming on the show today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. Thanks for having me. Thanks for reaching out.
Yeah, absolutely. Why don't you go ahead and kind of tell us your background from your perspective, and then we'll dive into wherever that takes us.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah, I mean, I would say non-conventional is a little bit of my background. I just got out of the military after 9 years of service.
Thank you for your service.
Yeah, my pleasure, man. It's a career, it's a calling, and it's been with me my whole life since I was a teenager, and doing kind of like junior ROTC, and then you go into college and you do ROTC, and you look back and it's like, wow, I've been doing this for I have 9 years of active duty service, but I've been doing this for 20 years of my life. Yeah. And I've found myself about halfway through, maybe at that 5-year mark while I was active duty, I found myself relatively unfulfilled. My job was easy. I liked it. I enjoyed it. I was a meteorologist, but most of my time I was, in the military as an officer, you're leading people and you're doing kind of project management and things like that. It's upper management kind of stuff, which was fun. I enjoyed it, but it was easy, and if you've ever worked for the government or been around the government, there's so much red tape just to do anything, to make the tiniest move. You got to go through 1,000 different sets of hands. And I was kind of frustrated. So I was living this life where I was kind of frustrated, and my job was easy, and I started looking at something else. And I kind of a friend of mine had told me about real estate and getting into that, and I didn't quite understand it. We were playing volleyball together. This is back in Savannah, Georgia, about 4 years ago when I got started, and he told me. So I was a captain at the time, and if you know military ranks, he was a first lieutenant, so he was one rank below me. So he made less money than me effectively, right? But he's like, dude, I just closed on my 7th house. And I was like, what? How do you do that? Because I'm renting and I know how much you make. And I know that you can't afford 7 mortgages. I can, I have a car payment. I get that. I know if I had 7 cars, I'd be in trouble. So but he broke down. He's like, no, this is good debt and all this stuff. And, we're playing and my mind's blown, and he throws me Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Right. And he's like, just read this book. It'll explain a lot, whatever. Started reading it. And like the story goes, I'm sure in so many of your guests who have had that epiphany moment, I read it it feels like I read it in 2 days, and it changed my life forever. I was like, oh my God, this is the pathway. This is the way to get to create a legacy of financial independence and family wealth, and have freedom for myself. And for the most part, avoid a lot of the red tape that I was so accustomed to live the life that I wanted to live. And it was right under my nose the whole time. So from there, it was just off, education, every book I can get my hands on, I'm reading. Every podcast, I'm driving down to Fort Stewart from Savannah, Georgia. It's about a 45-minute drive to go to work. And Bigger Pockets podcast, listen to Brandon Turner's story and just absorbing all of that knowledge. And a couple of months later, closed on my first quadplex. A couple months after that, bought another one just in the same neighborhood. And from there, I got orders up to Washington, D.C. And that's kind of where I initially hooked up with active duty passive income and helped them start building their company. And 2.5, 3 years later, we have something really, really special on our hands. So that's kind of the long and short of it.
Yeah. I mean, I love the idea that you're playing volleyball and just like, oh, hey, by the way, I have 7 houses and this is my.
I was so confused. I was like, dude, like, get out of here. I was like, what do you mean? And this guy, he's amazing. And he's total inspiration. He got out of the military before me. And, he was kind of doing the same thing. He was an officer, a West Point graduate and all of this stuff. He bought a quadplex downtown in Savannah. And I think he got it for 500. And this thing today, he still has it. He rents it out by the room. So each apartment, it's 4 units, right? Each apartment's like 3 bedrooms, rents it out to students by the room. Cash flows like a champ. It's worth like $1.2 million 3 years later. I mean, the dude is sitting on a gold mine.
Yeah. And
he used his VA loan to get it. Like, come on.
Yeah. Yeah. Downtown Savannah is good real estate to have.
Mm-hmm.
It's a nice area. That's very funny. So you sort of immediately started with these quadplexes, and when you made that transition from, doing that, and then you connected with active duty passive income, like what did that look like for you when you hooked up with them? How did that come about? What was your role, and how has that progressed?
Yeah. So, I mean, like many of your listeners, I'm a perennial student. I'm always learning. Right. And my model is, and maybe I learned this from the military and I don't know, but I never like to reinvent the wheel. So I will find someone who is doing something that I want to do or living a life that maybe I want to live. And I would literally copy everything that person does. And that person to me was Brandon Turner, Bigger Pockets.
Yeah.
I listened to everything this guy was doing. And I said, okay, well, why don't I just start doing that? So I started getting real estate, getting that experience. And then when it comes to active duty passive income, a LinkedIn connection actually sent me a LinkedIn message and was like, hey, I see you're doing these things and you're in the military. You should check out this group. And this is at the time, small Facebook group, maybe 1,200 people, which, decent Facebook group, but you know what I mean? Like real in its infancy. I think the company had been around maybe 1.5 years, and I just started adding value. I was like, oh man, this could be I'm just going to add as much value as I can. And they had this thing called a 30-day live challenge. And it's not there now, but I'm sure people on social media have seen these things before, but effectively you go on 30 days in a row on a Facebook Live or whatever platform you're on, and you just share value, just free value. And my whole thing, I had written down every day 1 through 30, what I'm going to talk about. And it was all the stuff that I've learned about these quadplexes because I had just closed on the second one. And, you're going through long distance rehabs, you're doing, you're an investor, right? So what can I share with this community of like-minded individuals? And I do this consistently, boom, 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 every day. And I start getting messages and I start, just kind of building the network. And eventually about 3 months later, after constantly adding value, the CEO of Active Duty Passive Income, Mark Yancich, calls me and out of the blue. And he's like, dude, you want to work with us? Like we see your hustle every single day. It's like, you want to work with us? And I said, yeah, I'd love to. But here are my conditions. I want to host the podcast, or at the time I want to co-host the podcast, and I want to drive transformational change. So if you can't offer me those two, then I'm not interested. And he said, no, yeah, let's do it. So I knew that, I needed a platform and I needed to host. Being a host of a podcast was the way to do it. So I went and joined a podcasting mastermind. I learned from some of the best podcasters out there on how to set up everything, the infrastructure, the back end stuff that Jason. But started doing that. And again, I'm just looking at what Brandon Turner's doing. I'm like, okay, how can I become an influencer in the space? Well, I have my niche of military real estate investors, to which I still active duty at the time. I am one. And how can I just continually add value to these people? And, from leading the podcast, it turned out to, well, let's set up a single family mastermind program. Well, we didn't have that. Who wants to take lead on that project? I'll do it. So me and another guy, we set up the entire infrastructure for a single family mastermind, which now has over 250 students in it. We coach weekly, and it's incredible because these students are coming from all over the world. I mean, we have students literally everywhere, and they're just doing amazing things. We have students who are closing deals from being deployed in Africa. They're buying deals in Tennessee. Wow. They're buying, it's just crazy things that you think that, normal real estate investors maybe listen to this podcast are like, whoa, you can do that? Yeah, you can. And people are doing it. So, it's just, kind of building my future by emulating others, I think was super helpful. And then consistently adding value to a community and nurturing a community that you legitimately care about. Like, I care about these people, I care about this community, and now I have ownership in the company. Not only like equity, but like ownership. Like I'm established in that community, and I thoroughly enjoy it. I mean, these are my people. So for folks out there listening, you got to know your why and all of that. That's really important. But if you're looking to inspire others, you don't necessarily have to start your own community. You just have to find a community that speaks to you and just start adding value for free. Don't expect anything in return. And it's going to take like months, maybe years. Just do it. And you never know what's going to happen, because that kind of, I think that social capital that you can share with others helps create authority in the space, helps grow smaller communities into larger ones. And that has a lot of power.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, those are all like, sort of the playbook for getting started. And I, the point about sort of emulating Brandon Turner is, there's a reason why, why that podcast got so big. There's a reason why he has, hundreds of thousands of followers on Instagram. And so he's very relatable, right? Mm-hmm. It's like anybody, you can listen to him and, hear his backstory, kind of connect with that, the guy who, like, I don't want to say a nobody, but it's like, he didn't come from like this,
right,
rich family or whatever. It was just like, he's just a guy that figured out that, hey, wait, I think maybe this can work. And he just did, kept at it, believed in it, built his story, kept providing value to the world. And, now he's not on the bigger podcast anymore, which is actually a sad thing, because I really enjoyed listening to him. But it was, it is a good, process to follow. And also, I think, important to look at how long it took him. Mm-hmm. Right. Like, and he talks about it, but it's like, it's been 10 years or something like that. Like, he's been at it. And it's, you mentioned how in your military career, how, okay, you're active duty for 9 years, but like, how much time leading up to that were you actually building to get into that? And it's the same thing for me. Like, I'm a veterinary surgeon now. I have been for 13 years, but like, it took me 12 years of like college vet school training mm-hmm. before that. And so people don't want to put in the work for a long time, right? Like, people want to do this big explosive thing, have their, work hard for a moment, which in reality is a moment, even if it's a week, but mm-hmm. it takes years to build these careers and be successful, and continuing to give back in some way, right? Like, you're giving back with your community. I really have the same aspirations to do, essentially emulate what you've done in the military community. I want to do that in the veterinary community. Like, this is a group of people that I think need help on a financial freedom level. And I want to be that person. Like, I want to mm-hmm. do that for them. So everything you said is 100%, correct, but very relatable to me in kind of the scenario that I'm in. So thank you for sharing that. And so you've gotten into that space, and now you're, kind of a leader and still providing value. You're teaching other people. What are you doing, from a I guess we'll talk a little bit about real estate anyway. What are you doing on the true real estate side? What's your niche there?
Yeah. So, after I closed on that second quad, um, and I had a college buddy help, we JV'd that deal. And, those, we said we renovated them. I handled all that, had the contractors, had the property managers. I was kind of doing the asset management side. He was the money guy. But after that, I got orders to come to Washington, D.C., and that's where I am right now. So I did a tour at the Pentagon, and, I'm working at the Pentagon, and I'm studying, and, when we moved here, my wife and I, well, girlfriend at the time, we were trying to find a place to live that, made sense. Well, hey, let's buy, maybe let's, we can get an FHA loan, because I already used my VA on one of the quads, and we can get an FHA loan and whatever. Just didn't make any sense. Everything was just upside down in this market in DC. So we decided to rent, and we're still in our apartment here, and it's fine. But I looked at the landscape here, and, I kind of initially I was like, okay, I'm just going to dedicate my investing elsewhere, right? So I'm going to build up these programs. I'm going to work on my consulting and my coaching and all of these other businesses, right? And help grow ADPI and create some other cool stuff, which we'll talk about later. But it was really last year, might be like Q3 last year, and I was looking at my, I looked at it and I was like, okay, I'm getting out of the military this quarter, and I'm going to have more time. Like, what do I want to do? And I was like, well, I might as well do something in the DC area. Can't buy anything because it just still doesn't make sense. I only buy for cash flow. So that's like one of my tenets, right? Mm-hmm. So just can't cash flow here. Doesn't make sense. And then I looked at short-term rentals, and I said, whoa, hold on. How does this work? And, like anything, you got to learn, network, take action, right? So I educated. I started reading books and mentor in the space. A good buddy of mine, he's an Army guy, and has over 200 short-term rentals, still active duty Army. And I gave him a call, and I was like, hey, man, is this conceivable? Like, I'm in the Washington, D.C. area. He's like, well, D.C., it's tough because there's a lot of restrictions. Yeah. But he said, Northern Virginia, different story. So I started getting, last November, we went live with our first one, and we're doing the arbitrage model. And, oh, my God, these things cash flow like crazy. And it's great, so I have a couple of those running here locally, and it's great cash flow. And it just helps supplement the cash flow that I'm getting from the apartments. And all at the same time, I was building a private equity company, and I was learning my true passion, which was fund management. It's how can because I knew, I feel like I was another non-conventional step was I jumped right into small multis, where I was like, okay, I could buy a single family home and go through that and rent it out and do that. Or I can just get the largest, a 4-unit, the largest my VA can get me, yeah, and never look back. And that's what I decided. And from there, I started getting into larger multifamily deals, and I started a private equity firm, and we got 140 unit property. And then from there, I kind of took those lessons learned in that company. And we were again in Mark Yann's house in New Orleans, and myself and Tim Kelly, and we were doing some video recording content, and we were just for regular stuff, fly down there, have a team meeting. But we're down there, and I was telling them about all the stuff that I'm doing in fund management, and I'm learning, and I spent 10 grand on a course. You just learn about all of this stuff, right? And we're looking at each other, and we're like, well, we have this community of about 25,000 real estate investors. Why can't we raise capital from them? And I said, no, you can. And this is exactly how you do it. And that kind of lit the spark, like right there. And for the next year, we built out this fund, ADPI Capital, which is a Reg A fund, which is very different than a lot of the syndicators out there who are relying on Reg D, 506B, 506C exemptions. Reg A is like a mini IPO, and it's a lot of work, but you can raise up to 75 million your first year. Your investors do not have to be accredited. You can market to anyone that you want to, and you can, minimum investments start out as low as $10 per investor. So it's crowdfunding on steroids, and it's amazing. So like the benefits, we looked at that from a company standpoint. We said, oh my God, we can finally have the solution for people who are constantly asking us, hey, how can I invest with you? I see what you guys are doing personally. I see Eric Upchurch closing, 300, 400 self-storage units. I see Tim Kelly doing deals. I see Mark Young getting assisted living homes and large multifamilies. How can I get involved? And that's what, and at the time, before this fund, we were like, well, we can teach you. Why don't we just educate you? But like you were saying, Jason, people want it now. Yep. They want that instant gratification. And some people don't have time they don't want to go through the education. They don't want to do the work, blah, 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 whatever. And we never had a real solution for them because we could say, oh, well, why don't you just join my 506c fund? But you have to be accredited, which most military folks aren't. And oh, by the way, it's a $50,000 minimum investment, which you probably don't have. So we had to step back and look at this from a solution standpoint and figure out how can we remove these barriers that are in front of our community, not anyone else, not the doctors, lawyers, dentists, and all those folks out there, our community, the military real estate investor. How can we help them get into these deals? And, so it took us about a year to do. And I'm happy to report that we're under SEC review right now for qualification. We should be, we got a deadline today. We're going to turn in another round of paperwork on Wednesday, but it's looking like in the next 3-5 weeks we'll be good to go. And we got deals lined up, and it's just really, really exciting because, like I said, it's that solutions mindset. So once you have the community and you're adding value, figure out what their problems are and just solve them.
Yeah. You may end up being my Brendan Turner, because I also love that idea. I've been sort of struggling with that same thing. It's like, just as you said, it's like, okay, here we can do deal by deal, and we've been doing that. And it's like, I really want to, put these opportunities out there for other veterinarians, but it's right. It's like minimum investment, 50,000. It's like, oh, I don't have 50,000. Like a lot of people don't have 50,000.
Yeah. It's a big ask.
Right. I like the people, my background, my family, like the way I grew up, my family, friends, like none of us had any money. Like we grew up not fortunate, I guess, is however you want to put it. And so when I think about like the people that I want to help, I'm happy to help wealthy people get wealthier, I guess, but that's not what fires me up. What fires me up is getting people involved in this stuff at any level. And it's like, creating a fund like that. People have asked me, why don't I do a fund? And I'm like, I would love to do a fund for veterinarians and their families and, that community, but it would have to be what you're doing. It would have to, I wouldn't be interested in it otherwise, but hearing that you're doing that is great. And you don't have to tell me all the specifics here now, but yeah, I may like to pick your brain in the future, because I think that's the way to do it, right? You're like, how can I help people that can invest any amount, right? If they want to, I've had my mom, I would love to invest with you, and it's like, well, Mom, I know you don't have $50,000. Like, you maybe could put $100 in, right? And it's like, right. It's just kind of that sort of thing that's where you can. To me, I feel like then you're really making a difference. You're really helping people that need help and showing them the benefits of what we're doing.
Yeah. And I think that's, our community specifically being military real estate investors, and we're up to over 55,000 military real estate investors in our community. We're growing about 5,000 to 7,000 investors per month. Because it's not just active duty military. I mean, our obviously active duty passive income, right? It's a play on words. But a lot of people are like, oh, I'm not active duty anymore. Can I be in this community? Of course you can. Yeah. And that just scratches the surface on what we offer, because in our Facebook community, that's where we're just constantly answering questions and helping people. And we have so many testimonials of people being like, oh my God, this community is like, this is the greatest community. And we protect that. We have a team of outstanding moderators. We're up to like 7 or 8 moderators of the Facebook group that will individually vet each person. So you can try and join the group, and we have a 2,300 member waiting list. because we're individually vetting to see if you're connected to the military. It's like Facebook stalking 101, probably like 201, really.
Yeah.
But
high
really
level
good
Facebook stalking.
Well, but I mean, that's the thing, because you have to protect your community. And this could be if you're in the veterinarian community or whatever. Like, you don't want people coming into your community that are just going to like be like super salesy and annoying, because that's just going to devalue what you've built. So you have to protect that brand and that community. And folks like Kelly Madden and Jill Campbell and Hannah Colbert, and they've just done outstanding jobs of doing that. And it literally is a full-time job, to handle at this level. And, our goal as a community is to grow to 100,000 by the end of the year. And we're relatively on track to do that. And, providing all the services that we provide, it's great, because we're in a place now where someone in the military, whether they have any experience in real estate, or maybe they bought a house and they're an accidental landlord because they got moved around the country and they're like, well, I just rent this out. I don't really know what I'm doing. They could come in and for free, literally learn everything that they need to take to actually start building an investment portfolio that by the time they retire from the military after 20 plus years, they don't have to go and get another job. They can live off of the cash flow, off the equity that they've earned. Or they can go and get into the educational programs and kind of fast track that. And, we have folks that have, one of my students, Mason, killing it. 6 months after joining the course, 9 units.
Wow.
Just like, boom, like that. And it's incredible because, it's just people, the people who want to get into this, whether they're military or not, they're starting out in real estate investing. Usually the number one thing that's holding them back is the thing that's between their ears. It's their head, man. Like it's fear. It's all mental. I had a member text me last night, just asking like, hey, I have this portfolio deal that, but I'm scared because I don't know how I'd get it funded. And I was like, well, is it a good deal? He's like, yeah, I think so. And I was like, all right, so call the bank. What the bank say? He's like, oh, well, I haven't done that yet. I was like, well, we'll do that, because there's commercial portfolio loans and you might be able to get one. And you might, if it's a great deal and it cash flows, you might even be able to get like an interest only for a couple years loan while you prove your cash flow, implement your business plan, and then you can refi into a 30-year term. Like stuff like that exists, but it blows people's minds because they only see it through the lens of, well, I got to put 20% down. No, you don't. Yeah. You don't. Yep. These small banks, they want those loans on their books. That's good business for them. So yeah, it's just having that mindset of helping people and providing the services is it's where it's what you got to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's a great example, but it's like, there's so many little things that you learn that like, it's not, unless someone just happens to give you that example on a podcast like you just did, it's like, there's so many little things as you go through the process that you maybe just don't think about. It's like, I posted something the other day just because I'm like, those are the things that give me the most frustration is the stuff that no one talks about. And it's like, it's a silly example, but it's like every time when we buy multifamily property, for people who don't know, you open it under an LLC. So the process is form the LLC in some state. There are different ways to pick that, not the point. But then you have to have an EIN, which is a business's social security number, essentially, right? So we form the LLC and we try to apply for the EIN. Now you're supposed to do it online. They have the online system. It should take 10 minutes. But for whatever reason, their system, if you have a business name that's like semi-similar to another one, it won't take it online. Well, the only other ways to do it then are either through fax, which I didn't even think people still had fax machines.
Yes, the facsimile.
Right. I was like, fax? I'm like, I don't have one of those. Or you can send it in by mail, like put a stamp on it, send it to and so it takes 4 business days for fax, and it takes 4 weeks for mail. And like, you don't have 4 weeks time when you're trying to fund a multifamily deal to establish a bank account. And so do the fax thing. And I don't have a fax machine. So I'm like looking up like fax programs, like fax apps on my phone, trying to figure all out. So I like go through this process multiple times, and I call. That you're also on hold like an hour every time you call the IRS. They don't have someone who will. The person that you're sending the fax to is the department that creates the entities. The person, the number that you call is someone who can basically look on a computer and see if the entity is formed, right? So,
exactly.
and
which you can do.
Right, which you can do. They won't let you talk to anyone in the entity. They can't even tell me that the fax was received, right? The person that you talk to. So I like go through this over and over and over again. Finally, I get in the mail an EIN letter for some company called Serendipia LLC. But everything else is right. Everything else is my name. Like I'm like, Serendipia. So I call and I'm like, hey, I'm trying to get an EIN, but I got this EIN for Serendipia or whatever. Turns out they put it under the wrong, like somehow managed to like cross the company name and like someone was able to fix it then. But I'm like, that's the stuff that it's never going to be in a book. It's never going to be like part of a structured mentorship program. But that's the stuff when like your members call you and they ask about that lending question. Like, I want to buy this portfolio, but I don't know what to do about it. Like that's the stuff that having your experience, you can give to them. And it's like save like literally weeks of hassle and fuss to get figured out.
And that's really what it is. So I highly encourage your listeners, if they want to get into any of this stuff, and we've been kind of talking about a lot of different things in this podcast, but if you do want to get into real estate investing, you can do it yourself. Absolutely, you can do it yourself. But I highly encourage you to find a mastermind and pay. Open up your checkbook and pay. Yeah. Because here's the deal. You can do it yourself and you can drag your knuckles until they're bloody and raw, making all the silly mistakes and going through the EIN process. Like that's just one small example. And the problem here is you don't know what you don't know. And that's perfectly fine. That is an acceptable level of just call it ignorance, call it whatever, but you're not, if you're new at something, you're going to totally suck at it. That's what I tell my folks. Like, if you've never swung a baseball bat before and you go, and try to be a professional baseball player, you're going to totally suck when that ball comes at 97 miles an hour. Like you ain't going to hit it. Yep. So, there's an element to that where people are so hesitant they want the mentorship, but they're so hesitant to pay for that knowledge and experience, because when you join that mentorship, not only are you you getting experience, right? You should hopefully build a network, because you're going to be networked with other people who are other students. So you have, hey, here's an automatic group of like-minded individuals, right? Like I can, maybe we can do business together. Who knows? But you're going to learn, and it should prompt you to take like some serious action. And then when you have a problem, you can bounce that idea off of someone, and someone in that group, if it's a mastermind that's worth its salt, they'll either be able to solve it for you, or they'll be able to point you in the direction where you can find it. And all that's going to do, it's not going to make the problem go away. Like people think that masterminds out there are like, oh yeah, the mentor, he's just going to handle it for me. No, I don't do that. Like I'm not going and applying for this dude's loan on his portfolio, but I don't care. But what I am going to do is I'm going to fast track the process. And I'm going to tell you, this is exactly what you need to do. So instead of you getting in your head about it and telling yourself that you can't do it and having all this negative self-talk and all of this BS, I'm going to say, no, man, it's super easy. This is how you do it. Go forth and conquer, and give you the confidence and the motivation. And something that would take you 4 weeks is going to take you a week. Like Jason, in your scenario, after one call with the IRS, I would be like, all right, I'm changing the name of the damn company. I don't care. I would have been like, screw this.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's literally like, I got that letter, and like that day we had talked, okay, we're just going to form a different LLC. We'll just change the name and stuff. Right. But yeah. So yeah, in the future, the take home lesson is, if that happens, change the name of the company. Also make the name of the company, like for these, something really weird, like something that's just doesn't doesn't, don't just use the name of the property or the address. Like sometimes you got to make it a little bit weird, or someone else will have something similar. Like that's ultimately, if it doesn't work in the online process, just change the name and it doesn't, it doesn't matter. You don't care what the name of the property LLC is. That has no bearing.
No one cares.
Right. Yeah.
But
you're not branding based on that name.
But that trips people up so much. Like so many people come to be like, oh man, I want to start an LLC for it, but I don't know what to call it. And what's my logo going to be? And they'll stew on this for like months.
Yep.
And I feel like I just have to shake them and be like, it doesn't matter. No one cares. Yep. I promise you, no one cares.
It's true. It's true. I think it's, you get hung up on it because it's something you can get hung up on, right? It's like something that you're like, maybe if I put a lot of thought into this, it's going to make, and it's really like, it's hard because it's hard to make a mistake picking your logo or picking the name of your, it's like, so I think it's avoidance of what we're afraid of. And that is like making those offers, doing something wrong that actually could have a significant impact is kind of what I think why people get hung up on that. That's my theory. I mean, really, really good points. Kevin, let's switch gears. We'll get to the part of the show where I ask you kind of all the questions that I ask every guest. The first one being related to the name of the show, being Know Your Why. So what is your why? What kind of drives you forward at this point?
Yeah. For me, it's all about, my family and building, a legacy. So my why is to build a legacy of financial independence and family wealth, built upon a foundation of abundance, joy, and service to others. So that is something that I read and repeat daily in my journal. And, it seems a bit monotonous and a bit repetitive, but every time I boil it down to why am I doing what I'm doing, it's really, it's for that freedom. And I've been able to transition out of the military, transition out of my W-2. And has it been rocky? Heck yeah. It's not easy. I'm not like, I'm not like laughing my way to the bank every month, but on the other end of the spectrum, I'm happy, like really happy to come and be able to hop on a Monday morning podcast with you, like where normally I'd be, stuck in some, in some back office in the Pentagon somewhere. Yeah. It's just like this stuff really truly brings me joy, and to be able to have the freedom to build my own business and obviously build ADPI Capital and ADPI, it's really fun. And, so that I think drives me deeper and further and faster than really anything I ever thought possible. But that desire for true freedom, and not to like not work, but to have the freedom to choose what I want to work on.
Yeah, I actually really like that, because I think a lot of people, on this podcast, I'm looking for freedom. People put out there on social media, I'm looking for financial freedom, to time freedom, whatever it is. But I think you need to define that for yourself. You need to know what that actually means, because as you said, like it doesn't necessarily mean not working, which I think is probably what most people think initially. Like, I don't want to work. I don't like this job. I want freedom from this job or whatever it is. But it is that, but it isn't just that. It's like freedom from like everything, right? It's freedom to do whatever you want on your own terms. I think it's a good, you put it in your journal, read it every day, whatever you need to do to figure it out for yourself. And I think sometimes that shifts a little bit. You might have different goals and whys in the beginning that change, but it's a great point. Second question for you is, tell us something about yourself that maybe isn't common knowledge, something that special skill, a hobby, anything that you're comfortable sharing.
Yeah, no. When I'm not, doing podcasts and managing the fund and doing all this stuff, I kind of am into like some weirdly obscure sports. So pickleball, if you've ever played that, super into that. It's like tennis meets ping pong. I've
never played, but I've weirdly, like, I play soccer, and pickleball courts are popping up all over. Like
everywhere.
It seems very popular.
And yeah, they say it's like the fastest growing
it.
sport. And I started playing like last year. And there's one down the street from me in the city in DC here. And I meet with, we got maybe 8 or 10 people, and we just go out and play and it's it's a great thing about having time freedom, because, they're remote workers and they have lunch breaks, and they're like, hey, let's go out on a Wednesday at 12 to 1:30. I'm like, heck yeah, I'm there, let me just clear my schedule quick. Cause I want to play pickleball with that. And I like playing disc golf and regular golf and just staying super active. But, just I'm trying out different things lately, just like different sports than the conventional ones that I would always play, like soccer and basketball and all that stuff. And it's been fun. It's really been fun. So I've been into pickleball and disc golf lately.
It's fun to figure out what to do with the time. Right? Like when you leave the W2, you're like, huh.
My wife says I'm turning into like an old man, like I'm playing like 60-year-old man sports. Right. And I was just that's I'm going to start playing like shuffleboard soon or something.
Effectively retired. What do I do with this extra time?
I'm really embracing this.
Yeah. Kevin, when people hear this and they want to reach out to you, what's the best way?
Yeah. So really the best way is to go to adpicapital.com. So we have a couple things set up. One, the fund, and we didn't really get to touch on it this show, but it really is exciting in the fact that we have broken down all the barriers, and it's not just for military folks. So if you're out there and you're interested and you want to get in on some, we have multifamily deals, self-storage deals, development deals. We have mobile home parks, all of this stuff in the fund. And, and you're interested in becoming, kind of that passive investor, and, you might not have the $50,000. That's okay. Our minimum investment starts at $500, and, we have millions raised already, but we still have room in the fund. So if that does pique your interest a little bit, just head on over to www.adpicapital.com. Or if you're at the gym now, or you're listening on the go, you can simply text ADPI to 33777, and you'll get all the information there.
Awesome. Okay. We'll put that in the show notes too, so people have it. But yeah, that's actually very cool to be able to text and get that connection. So awesome. Final question. What advice would you give to someone who is, kind of getting started in real estate, and they're trying to make their way? What would you tell them? Which I'm sure you have these conversations all the time. So yeah, what's your go-to for those new people?
Yeah. For the big thing is you need a foundation of education. So, and that takes many forms. At ADPI, I kind of dubbed it the ADPI triad, right? So if you think of the recycling sign, it's like that triangle, and it's all the arrows it's constant, it's iterative process, right? It's always happening. You're always learning, you're always networking, and you're always taking action. And taking action could be calling a realtor and getting in a new market and having a conversation. That little tiny action step, that's taking action. Or taking action could be closing on a 12-unit apartment complex. That's also taking action. But as long as you're driving these little tiny steps forward in the direction that you want to go to, and that direction is, if you think of like a bowling alley with bumpers, you got the bumpers on the side, and you have a mentor on one side, and you have your education on the other side, you're going to be good. And you have a network, and you're building, you're going to be okay. You're going to avoid the majority of the pitfalls that newbie real estate investors fall into, because they think that they can do it by themselves. And like I said earlier, you can, but you're going to make mistakes. And sometimes those mistakes are really costly, like really costly. So if you want to do it, I highly encourage you to do it. Get a foundation of education. And, again, if you really want to fast track this, and you want to have that explosive growth from 9, like Mason had, from 0 to 9 units in 6 months, then go and get yourself a mastermind. Go and get yourself a mentor, open up your checkbook, and dedicate yourself, because, no one finds success in anything when they do it halfway. Just doesn't work like that. So if you really want to do it, then I encourage you to do it. And if you dedicate yourself, you will be shocked at how fast you see results if you're 100% in. And so I hope the listeners that are listening to this podcast are 100% in, and they get after it, because it's really, this business is not hard. It's not hard. It's really not. It just requires it requires dedication.
Yeah, 100% agree. That's fantastic. Kevin, thank you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate it. Appreciate your time, everything that you've shared. I think people are really going to get a lot out of this episode, and hopefully it'll be a lot of new investors to your fund. Get the
yeah, maybe. I mean, if that revs your engine, we're there for you. But again, if you're looking for, just you're military, you're a veteran, and you want to get into the group, just go and get into the group. It's not just, we're so multidimensional at this point that it's we're here to help, and we're here to provide solutions. So yeah, man, Jason, it was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And everybody, when you hear this episode, and I'm sure you'll love it, Kevin really provided a lot of value. Just please go ahead and like and review. Let us reach more people. All right, have a great day.
I'd like to show you why knowing your why is the start of your journey. Without a strong why, it can be so difficult to reach your maximum potential. My name is Dr. Jason Balara, and every week I meet with real estate investors and mindset specialists that are taking action in order to build a life according to their own terms. We will break down what drives successful people and allows them to achieve at such a high level. If you are a professional wanting to break through, or simply someone that wants to hear an inspiring story, the Know Your Why podcast is made for you.